The bees outside the hive all looked startled and nervous. A group of bees exited the tunnels of the hive and attempted to stop the approach of the green fly army. The area was cloaked in gold and green as a battle between the two insect collectives unfolded. Like rain, countless bees and flies cascaded down to the ground amidst the battle. The death toll was humongous. Han Sen was shocked at the sight, but he noticed that the green flies were not as strong as the golden bees. They did, however, make up for the lack in power with sheer numbers. They were overwhelming, and they fearlessly kamikazed their way towards the hive. Before long, the Bee King itself exited the hive to greet the assault, and quickly wiped out the green flies that attempted to worm their way inside. Within seconds of exiting, it was killing whole hordes of the insects. But still, their numbers were too many. They were like a plague of locusts, and wherever the Bee King did not look in that second, countless wretched flies tried to dig their way inside. Han Sen assumed the flies were trying to steal the honey at first, but then he saw that he was incorrect. The sneaky flies that had managed to get inside made their way out shortly after, all in possession of light gold cocoons. These flies are not here for the honey, so what are they stealing the cocoons for? Han Sen was confused by this revelation. The bees were furious upon seeing their cocoons being stolen, and in a frenzy they killed any fly in possession of one. One by one, they were killed, and one by one, cocoons dropped to the ground. More and more flies battled their way forward, however, and many picked up where their fallen compatriots left off. The cocoons were picked up once more and carried away. The Bee King, seeing its cocoons had been stolen, became frenzied. Like a gold beam of light, it cut its way into the horde of flies. Despite the Bee King's power, however, the green flies were not afraid and did not relent. Free of fear, they pushed on to retrieve the cocoons. Fortunately for them, the Bee King lacked AoE attacks, and as a result, many cocoons were carried away. After following them for 20 miles, he was brought to the edge of the ocean of flowers. Before long, he came across a green spider that was the size of a basketball. The flies approached the spider, and when they did, they threw the cocoons over to it. The spider then gobbled them up vilely. Flies were no strangers to swamps, but their allegiance to the spider was most queer. It seemed as if they had been hypnotized by the lone arachnid, allowing themselves and a legion of others to be slaughtered while retrieving the bees' cocoons at the spider's behest. This was quite the revelation, and so Han Sen quickly used his Dongshuan aura to study the spider he had come across. It was a super creature, yes, but again, it was a first-generation one. Is this long-legged fellow producing babies? Is that why it's eating? Han Sen felt strange. He had come to notice that the super creatures in the second God's Sanctuary bred a lot more than they did in the first God's Sanctuary. It looks like all these creatures are keen to evolve. But how powerful must one become to be like the Holy Rhino and leave and ascend to the third God's Sanctuary? A while later, another spider emerged from a nearby cave. It looked similar to the green spider, just smaller. It was around the size of a baseball. Its body was like green jade, and it was a lot better looking than the other one. Second generation. Han Sen was super excited. He cast his aura again, but was befuddled. It possessed a strange life force he had not seen before. Although it was not as strong as the silver fox, it was much stronger than a sacred blood creature. It had to be a second-generation super creature. Yes, Han Sen bounded with excitement, and without hesitation, sixed his little angel on the big spider. Then he summoned his peacock crossbow and loaded it up with Z-steel bolts. He stood by and waited. The big spider was bringing its baby forward, getting it to feed. But when it caught sight of the little angel approaching in a flash, it spat a white net to web her greatsword. The little angel's greatsword was able to slice through the entangling web, but its force coming down was much weaker. The spider continued to fire its webs at the little angel. This caused her a lot of trouble, and as they added up, the webs were becoming increasingly sturdy and sticky. Although she could cut her way through, much of it remained on her body and sword to slow her down. As this was occurring, Han Sen raised his peacock crossbow to take aim. He thought to himself, it's survival of the fittest, baby. There's always a bigger fish. You eat the cocoons, I eat you. It's simple. As he took his careful aim, he also employed his Dongshuan aura to memorize the little spider's energy flow. While the little spider happily spat out webs like its parent, Han Sen pulled the trigger and rapidly fired multiple bolts towards it. As it spat out its last web, multiple white flashes cut through its body. Even Han Sen was surprised to see his bolts pierce right through it. Super creature Devil Eye Spider Baby killed. Beast soul gained. Eat the flesh of the Devil Eye Spider Baby to gain 0 to 10 Super Geno points randomly. You may also harvest its Life Geno Essence. Consume its Life Geno Essence to gain 0 to 10 Super Geno points randomly. Han Sen almost jumped when he heard that. He never expected to kill the spider so easily and obtain its beast soul. When the mama spider saw its child brutally murdered, it became furious. It skittered towards Hansen in hysteria, with an insatiable bloodthirst for the person who had just slain its baby. Hansen did not run, however. He now knew that compared to other super creatures, the Devil Eye Spider was relatively weak. He cast his Sonic Thunder Punch, ready to strike once it got close enough. The thunder and bell power brewed inside him as a frightening mixture, and as soon as the spider was close, Hansen would unleash it on the unsuspecting fiend. He hoped to stun it, but Hansen, upon looking into the spider's blue eyes, felt a strange murky fog mask the clarity of his mind. He lost hold of the energy that was gathering inside him, canceling his proposed Sonic Thunder Punch. A second later, Hansen was back to normal. The spider was right in front of him, raising its legs to claw his face off. At the last second, Hansen quickly cast a skill to dodge. In his heart, he thought to himself, that was close. The spider can actually control the mind of a human being with its hypnotic eyes. It is fortunate my will was mutated following my trip to the Crystallizer ruins and became stronger than ordinary people's. If I hadn't recovered in that quick second, I might have been killed right there. The little angel rushed over to inhibit the spider's pursuit of Hansen. In haste, Hansen closed his eyes and retreated to gain some distance. He used his Dongshuan aura to observe the spider's next move and prepared another bolt with the arachnid's name on it. As he had thought, as long as he avoided eye contact with the spider, his mind maintained its clarity. And then, with his aim raised, he relentlessly fired a number of bolts towards the creature. With the aid of Hansen's bolts, Little Angel finally managed to land a strike on the Devil Eye Spider. When the sword was driven through the spider's body, green blood squirted from the orifice. Super creature Devil Eye Spider killed. No beast soul gained. You may harvest its life Geno Essence. Consume its life Geno Essence to gain 0 to 10 Super Geno points randomly. What a shame. Hansen sighed at his inability to obtain another beast soul. The Devil Eye Spider's body decomposed in a jiffy, leaving behind a life Geno Essence in its stead. This was unlike the little spider he had previously killed. But while Hansen wasn't looking, the silver fox quickly ran over to gobble its corpse up. You little prick. I was going to use that to feed a pet beast soul. It was too late for Hansen to retrieve the body, but he was just bluffing. He wanted the silver fox to grow, and he hoped the meal might help accelerate its painfully slow growth. Compared to the fairy who never listened, the silver fox was far more appreciated and all-around useful. Hansen held the little spider's life Geno Essence in his hand. He simulated its energy flow and refined it within him. The crystal in his hand was quickly absorbed. Devil Eye Spider Baby consumed. 1 Super Geno point gained. The announcement continued to echo inside Hansen's head as a cooling sensation entered his body, blending with his cells. His eyes felt especially invigorated. This brought his total tally of Super Geno points up to 44. Almost halfway, Hansen was pumped. When Hansen looked into the distance, he felt as if his vision had improved. The big Devil Eye Spider is still a Devil Eye Spider. What if I am able to absorb the life Geno Essence by simulating the energy flow of its offspring? Hansen believed it made sense, so he did as he thought. He simulated the baby Devil Eye Spider's energy flow and tried to absorb the life Geno Essence. As he began casting the simulated energy flow, the green life Geno Essence began to rumble. Then, it was absorbed into his body and refined into his cells slowly. Devil Eye Spider consumed. 1 Super Geno point gained. The familiar voice rung again in his head. With exuberant joy, he thought to himself, it worked. This will save me a lot of time further down the road. If I can kill the whole family of snow turtles, heaven knows how many Super Geno points I'll increase all at once. But Hansen quickly hit a snag. The announcement rung twice, which meant he had only managed to obtain 2 Super Geno points. It was much less than the small Devil Eye Spider's life Geno Essence. Strange. If there was an immunity build-up for obtaining Super Geno points from the same breed of creature, I shouldn't have reached at the limit so quickly. Hansen frowned as he thought of this possibility. Hansen noticed the fairy emerge from the scallop shell, and it appeared as if she had just woken up. Hansen was getting rather annoyed by her company, as all she did was eat valuable consumables and be lazy. Aside from acting cute, she didn't do anything. She'd wait until battles were over before coming out, and she didn't at all treat him as if he were her real master. If he wanted to get rid of the fairy, Hansen was concerned he'd have to do it the hard way. But he was unsure whether or not he could beat her. But then, Hansen suddenly thought of the Devil Eye Spider's power he had just been bestowed. Hansen tried to simulate the Devil Eye Spider's energy flow, and he felt different. A cold air exuded from his eyes. Little baby, come. Come and look here. Hansen smiled, opened his hands flat and called upon the fairy to come. The fairy casually landed where she was bid to. When she looked upon him, she began to rub her eyes. Han Sen's eyes looked strange all of a sudden. He stared at the fairy, and when she looked into them, she appeared confused. Even her own eyes now looked strange, appearing empty. Haha, little fairy. Now, let's see how I intend to get rid of you. Han Sen was laughing in his heart, and as he did so, he raised his devilish hand above the fairy. Han Sen's hand hadn't come down on the fairy yet. But suddenly, the little fairy blew frosty air towards his face. Ice and frost accumulated on his eyebrows, and he shivered from the sudden cold. The fairy stuck her tongue out at Han Sen and laughed. How dare you trick me? Han Sen tried to grab the fairy, but she quickly returned to the safety of her scallop shell. From inside its transparent casing, she gave him a mocking face. There was nothing he could do now except return the scallop shell to his pocket. It doesn't seem as if this skill works on fairies. Han Sen felt fairly bad, but he resolved to test out the skill on someone else when he left this place. For the time being, however, Han Sen decided to examine the Devil Eye Spider Beast Soul. Devil Eye Spider Mask-type Beast Soul. Han Sen was surprised. Mask-type beast souls were remarkably rare and not particularly useful, either. It didn't seem very defensive, and what's more, it obscured his vision. As Han Sen wore it, his vision was tinted blue. Whenever he saw a living creature, it appeared red. It was very much like a thermal imaging tool. It really isn't a defensive mask. What's it for, then? Han Sen took a look at the silver fox who was lying on his shoulder, and the little thing appeared red as if it was on fire. Looking into the distance to peer at the green-headed flies, he saw them as specks of red that were faint and difficult to make out. Han Sen used the mask for quite some time and got a fairly decent grasp on what the mask's benefits ultimately would be. With this mask, you could view the strength of a creature's life force, but you could only see the life force, and that was it. The Dongshuan aura was still better because it could observe the energy flow as well. Han Sen then went on to simulate the Devil Eye Spider's energy flow. His vision suddenly became much stronger, and the distance to which he could see had greatly improved. Furthermore, he could make out all manner of details for distant objects unlike ever before. Han Sen wanted to test the extent of its vision enhancements, and when he did, he was shocked. He was able to observe every single hair on a fly that was 1 kilometer away. Han Sen loved it. Then, he pulled the scallop shell out of his pocket. He looked at the fairy and cast the Devil Eye Spider's energy flow. The fairy, as soon as she saw Han Sen, stuck out her tongue at him once more. But upon looking him in the eye, her face suddenly became tinged with confusion. Get out. Han Sen used his willpower to command the fairy to exit the safety of her shell. And then, the fairy slowly opened the shell. But she only opened it halfway before snapping out of her daze and closing it immediately. She looked at Han Sen with much shock, then turned around to avoid making eye contact with him. It works. Han Sen had grown really fond of the mask he received. If he could confuse a super creature such as the fairy, then it had to be remarkably powerful. But despite the grand reward he had managed to obtain, Han Sen was a greedy person. He returned to the beehive with a keen interest into what else he might claim on this outing. The flies seemed to have snapped out of their mind control following the spider's death. They no longer bothered the beehive, and instead made their way back to the swamp. Aside from the golden-winged bees and the green fly corpses that littered the ground, the hive seemed to have gone back to normal operation. When night fell, the Bee King went back to its routine. It emerged from the beehive and collected the honey that oozed out from the Chinese rose. Han Sen could still not figure out what this activity was for. Still, he had come up with a plan. The following night, he would command the little angel to gather the honey on his behalf. After the next day came and went, Han Sen made his preparations and got into position. With the little angel ready to go, he saw the king bee make its routine exit. Strangely, however, the Bee King looked different on this day. The claws of the Bee King seemed to be in possession of something. The Bee King maintained its hold on the bee crystal as it began circling the top of the hill. Eventually, it placed the bee crystal down near the flower and returned to the hive. Han Sen suddenly heard a strange noise coming from someplace in the sea of flowers. It seemed as if something was approaching. Han Sen turned around to take a look, and he managed to espy the presence of something crawling inside the bushes. Due to the obscuring leaves and relative darkness, he couldn't make out who or what it was, however. The flowers that populated the area grew close to the ground. If something was crawling around out of sight, it couldn't have been all that big. Now, this intruder was making a beeline for the hill, and that was when Han Sen caught sight of what it truly was, a baby silkworm that was half transparent. It was indeed fairly small, and its body was like a silver crystal. It climbed atop the hill and approached the flower there. The bees beneath the hill made no move to attack it. The silkworm baby proudly mounted the hill and wriggled around the flower in circles. It wasn't long before it took notice of the 5 bee crystals, and believing no one to be watching it, began nibbling them. It is difficult to be a bee in this place. First, they are attacked by an army of flies commanded by a spider, so that their cocoons are stolen. And now, they must give an offering of crystals to a bug. Insects may live a hard life, but this takes the cake. Their mistreatment is almost upsetting. Han Sen now understood that the bees had been working hard to produce an offering of edible crystals to an extortionist bug. Free lunch in trade for protection. If the Bee King feared the bug, then it undoubtedly had to be something quite powerful. Han Sen used his new mask to take a look at it, and he was startled to see its body flaming hot. It was far more powerful than the silver fox, but not too far off the Bee King. Han Sen didn't understand why it was so threatening to the Bee King, though. How could that bug compel the Bee King to work tirelessly to produce an offering of such crystals? It didn't look all that much stronger than the Bee King, and with the backup of its bee army, the king shouldn't have had too much trouble in running the little bug off. But now, all the bees must have been cowering inside their hive, afraid of the bug outside munching on all the fruits of their labor. Within the hour, the silkworm baby had managed to gobble up all 5 of the crystals. But after eating them, it did not leave. Instead, it remained atop the hill producing strange sounds. Not long after, the Bee King flew out and looked at the bug with great trepidation. The bug made a few more noises, to which the Bee King responded angrily. It flapped its wings faster than usual as a display of this. Han Sen was not sure what to think of anymore, and no witty comments came to mind. After some sort of deal was struck, the Bee King returned to the hive. Upon its return a little later, it was carrying another 3 of those crystals to the bug. But this did not satisfy the bug either, and it made wretched screeches in response. Arrogantly, it hopped on a rock and screamed even louder. It was like some gangster demanding a bigger drop. Han Sen thought the tether of the Bee King's patience would finally snap, and a fight between the two would commence. But the Bee King conceded to the demands once more, and brought out another 3 bee crystals. Where does that little squirt come from? How can he get the Bee King to behave like this? Does it have a bigger, badder daddy grub or something? Is that why it can do as it pleases? Han Sen's mind began to work. If the silkworm did indeed have friends, then he figured he could waste those one by one until only the elder remained. If it had the same energy flow, Han Sen figured he could absorb the life geno-essences of an entire family of creatures. Silk began to pour out of the bug's mouth. It built up until it had wholly cocooned itself. Is this thing a little baby? Is it now transforming into an adult? Han Sen's face looked puzzled. If he guessed it correctly, Han Sen knew why the Bee King was so afraid of it. If it was already that powerful as a baby, heaven knew how powerful it would become once it had fully grown. When the sun rose in the east, the cocoon cracked open. Han Sen witnessed a silver-winged butterfly struggling to pry itself free from the thick hide of the cocoon. The cocoon was incredibly sturdy, and breaking it completely was sure to be a trying task. The silver butterfly could only poke its head through the opening, as its body and wings were still deep inside. Han Sen's heart jumped, and he quickly summoned the little angel. With his peacock crossbow, he repeatedly fired towards the silver butterfly. If he didn't kill it now, it'd be much harder once it fully exited the cocoon. This was sure to be the best chance he would get. The butterfly had only just finished evolving, and the creature wouldn't have adapted to its new body yet. And now, stuck inside the cocoon, there truly could not be a greater chance. A Z-steel bolt struck the silver butterfly's head. It only created a shallow mark, and it was already quite clear how much stronger this creature was than the devil-eye spider. But after that strike, the silver butterfly cried out in pain. It struggled to remove itself from the cocoon at a more hurried pace. But now, the little angel had arrived before it, and she brought down her mighty greatsword on the creature's head. The silver butterfly was still stuck inside the cocoon, and it had not even managed to free one of its claws yet. It seemed to try to roll with the cocoon to dodge the incoming attack. The little angel struck the butterfly's head in the exact same spot another 3 times, which left behind a deep wound. But the silver butterfly was tough, and even that wasn't enough to kill it. Han Sen rushed before the emerging butterfly with the fusion of sonic and thunder power growling within him. With a charged fist, he threw it down upon the butterfly's head. The lightning shone like a silver sun as it was driven into the butterfly's chrome dome. The energy flow inside the creature was grievously disturbed, and the lightning stunned it into a state of paralysis. The little angel took advantage of this window to get in a few more hits on the butterfly's head wound. From the wretched area of damage, much blood began to gush. It seemed as if half of its head had been carved away by now. But even in such a state, the silver butterfly was not willing to submit to the hold of death. With greater pushes, it seemed close to escaping the trapping of its cocoon. It looked up and screamed towards Han Sen and the little angel. Han Sen's eyes flashed, and a blue light activated on his devil eye mask. Instantly, it stunned the raging butterfly. In that moment, little angel was granted the opportunity to throw in a few additional attacks. She managed to cleave another portion of the silver butterfly's head away, and put it into a state that would eventually lead to its death. Super creature silver-winged holy butterfly killed. No beast soul gained. Eat the flesh to gain 0 to 10 super geno points randomly. Han Sen was overjoyed. He wasted no further time and quickly summoned his little blue bell. He wanted it to absorb the butterfly's blood without letting any go to waste. After the death knell absorbed the silver-winged holy butterfly's blood, the symbols etched across its body were even clearer. It looked likely to evolve soon. Han Sen watched it intently, but when nothing happened, returned it. Han Sen dug a small silver crystal out of the butterfly's corpse. This was the life geno essence. Han Sen then picked up the whole corpse of the silver butterfly. Humans could not eat the bodies of super creatures, and there were no pets to feed it to. Therefore, he resolved to bring it back with him for the time being. Just as Han Sen decided to leave, he turned to see himself surrounded by a large army of bees led by the Bee King himself. This soured his mood a little, and he thought to himself, "You bastards. That bug practically forced you into slavery, and it made you lose your nads. Do you think the guy who killed that butterfly is any weaker than it? And you want to come out and bully me, huh? Is that it?" Just as he thought these things and prepared to command the little angel to battle the bees, he saw the Bee King holding a number of gold, shiny crystals in its hands. It then placed 5 bee crystals down in front of Han Sen before circling him with apparent glee. Han Sen may not have spoken the language of bees, but he could guess that the bee was looking to repay him for the service of protection he had unwittingly provided. Smart move. I was just about to destroy your hive. Such intelligence needs to be rewarded, and I'll allow you to remain alive on the account of the smarts you seem to possess. The next time I return, you better make sure to have some bee crystals ready-made for me. Okay? Han Sen took the bee crystals and thought to go, in no mood for any further fighting. Killing first-generation super creatures wasn't very beneficial, and the chance of obtaining a beast's soul was far too low as it was, anyway. Since he had been given such a handsome reward, he thought it would be best if he did not provoke the bees any further. There were too many of them, anyway, and killing the king would have proved to be quite the challenge. Back in the shelter, while Han Sen thought about what he might do with the butterfly's body, Lin Beifeng happily approached him. "Here you are. I have this for you." Lin Beifeng gave Han Sen a rectangular box. The box was just an ordinary platinum box by the looks of it, but when he opened it, he was delivered quite the shock. He turned his head to Lin Beifeng and said, "Z Steel Raw Stone." Han Sen wasn't entirely sure if this truly was Z Steel Raw Stone because of its massive size. It was rare to see a 1-foot-long raw stone, one which he could use to produce more bolts, but this one in the box was 2 feet long and 3 fingers wide. Although the shape was not entirely straight, it might have been enough to produce a dagger or even short sword. A Z-Steel raw stone such as that was the best gift he could receive. It was far greater than the Z-Steel bolts the Wang family had given him, for sure. You have a good eye. Few people can recognize something like this. I had prepared a speech of explanation and everything. I had no clue you knew all about it already. Lin Beifeng let out a hearty chuckle and then proceeded to say, "Keep it. Consider this payment for the services you have provided me, and the 2 beast souls you gave me. But don't tell anyone you received this as a gift from me. If you do, I'll play dumb and won't admit a thing." Trading such an item for 2 sacred blood beast souls was far too much. Lin Beifeng did not take it back, however. He merely smiled and said, "Where this came from was strange. I haven't dared use it, and I have been unable to find anyone willing to forge it into something on my behalf. It would be useless for me to hold on to it, so you might as well accept it. You'll put it to good use. If you still feel bad about such a trade, then how about you offer me another 2 sacred blood beast souls? I'll be honest with you, I dug it up myself. You can't ask me any more than that. Just find someone you trust to forge it into something you can use. Keep its origins a secret and don't tell anyone about my involvement with it. You are welcome. But if you have a humanoid transformation beast soul, I would gladly receive one of those. Or perhaps even a powerful possession beast soul. Those would be great." Saliva drooled from the corners of Lin Beifeng's lips. Han Sen gave a 2-fingered salute to Lin Beifeng, as those were things he wanted, as well. Han Sen brought the raw stone back to the Alliance, and got in contact with the Wang family so they could forge something out of it. The ordinary tools he possessed would not be sufficient. After sorting things out there, he gave Jai Yanran a call. She was free this day, and that meant they could eat together. Han Sen's heart suddenly jumped, and with an evil smile, he thought to himself, "Later, I can try this out on her." Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.